From an insane amount of improvisation to terrifying accidents on set, here is the dark side of Avengers Doomsday. We all know that Marvel's The Avengers is one of the most epic superhero movies ever made. It has everything from space battles to alien invasions, evil wizards, and nuclear bombs. But before we knew any of this, before the movie was released to the public, there were quite a few dark secrets that had to be kept under wraps by the cast and crew. Let's find out what they are in today's Top 10 Crazy Behind-the-Scenes Facts about Avengers Doomsday. At number 10, the real reason Joss Whedon signed on. After Iron Man came out in 2008, the path was cleared for many more Marvel superheroes to have their own standalone movies, which led to the idea of having them all team up in the Avengers. When Joss Whedon was first approached to direct, he turned it down because he didn't think it could be done right. He said he thought it would be too hard to make a good movie with so many characters. But then Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige told him that they weren't going to make the other movies unless he signed on to direct. So basically, Joss only agreed to make the movie because he wanted the other movies to happen. And since then, he's directed 2 more Marvel movies. Maybe if another director had been chosen, the Marvel Cinematic Universe wouldn't be as popular as it is now. Number 9, Tom Hiddleston auditioned as an assassin. When Tom auditioned for his role as the god of mischief, Loki, he wasn't trying out to play a villain. In fact, he went in thinking he was going to be Iron Man. For his audition, he chose a scene from Thor where Loki was supposed to be trying to kill his brother Thor. When he got to the part where Loki takes out a knife, Tom actually took out a fork instead. But when he tried to flip it like he was supposed to, the fork just hit the table and made a bunch of noise. Tom panicked and sort of just ran with it, turning the whole thing into a comedy sketch. But luckily, Marvel thought he did great and they signed him on to play the villain. Number 8, Samuel L. Jackson had to improvise most of his lines. Samuel L. Jackson really surprised everyone with how good he was in the movie. But even though he was great, some people on set felt like his character, Nick Fury, wasn't given enough to do. Because of this, many of Samuel's lines were improvised. This was especially true during the scene where Tony Stark was locked up in a 10-foot cell. In the script, Nick Fury was only supposed to say 2 lines, but Samuel extended his part by making it more of a rap song. He even rapped about Tony's mom, which caught Mark Ruffalo off guard. Samuel also added a lot to the scene where he visits Black Widow in her apartment. They weren't really flirting in the script, but Samuel made it clear that he was hitting on her by winking and complimenting her a little too much. Number 7. Scarlett Johansson suffered multiple injuries. During filming, ScarJo hurt herself so badly that she ended up in the hospital twice. She broke her arm during the fight scene in New York City, but she didn't even realize it until after they wrapped. The next day, she had to be taken to the emergency room by ambulance because she couldn't move her fingers. Then she broke her head. She was knocked out cold for a few seconds, but she still tried to hide it from the crew so they could keep filming. But when they looked at the monitor later, they saw that there was blood all over the lens. Even though ScarJo had to go to the hospital again, she didn't let anything slow her down. She kept working and became one of the highest-paid actresses in Hollywood today. Number 6. A terrifying, almost disaster. The big battle in New York City was full of action, but one stunt almost caused a real disaster. In one scene, Chris Evans had to pretend to get shot by a machine gun while flying through the air. The stunt was done with a harness, but before they started, no one realized that the metal piece keeping Captain America's shield together was very loose. As soon as Chris was shot, the shield flew apart, sending sharp pieces of metal flying. Everyone panicked and hid except for Chris, who was still hanging from the harness. Luckily, the shield landed away from him, and no one was hurt. But it could have been a lot worse. If one of the pieces had hit someone in the eye, they could have gone blind or even been killed. Since then, safety measures on set have been much stricter, and there have not been any more mishaps like that one. At number 5, Thor was almost cut from the movie. When the first Avengers movie was being made, Thor wasn't as well known as he is now, but Marvel still decided to put him in the movie even though it meant they'd have less time to focus on the other characters. Some people who worked on the movie felt the same way. They thought Thor should be cut so they could spend more time developing the other characters. But despite the criticism, Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston both gave amazing performances. Thor and Loki quickly became fan favorites and even got their own movie spin-off. But things could have been very different. If Thor hadn't been in the movie, it might not have been as popular. Number 4. Joss Whedon hated the script at first. When Joss Whedon was first hired to write and direct the Avengers, he was given a script by Zach Penn and Mark Boberg, but after reading it, he hated it. He said the script ain't very funny and didn't do a good job of developing the characters. So he asked for more time to rewrite it. But this meant he only had 3 months to finish the script instead of the usual 5. Plus, he was also directing and producing the movie. So he ended up working 18-hour days, 7 days a week. Even though he was under a lot of pressure, he liked the final script so much that he considered releasing both versions of it as a comic. But in the end, he decided against it. At number 3, Chris Pratt wasn't always Star-Lord. When the movie came out, Chris Pratt was already a well-known actor. He had been in several movies, including Moneyball and Guardians of the Galaxy, but he almost played a different role in the Avengers. When Chris met with Marvel, they offered him the role of Star-Lord, but he turned it down because he had already read the comics and didn't think the character was interesting enough. Luckily for Chris, Marvel didn't give up on him. They asked him to come back for another meeting, and this time they offered him the role of Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord. Chris accepted, and the rest is history. Chris has become one of the most popular actors in the world thanks to his role in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But it could have been very different if he had played a different hero. Number 2, Robert Downey Jr. improvised Captain America's shield scene. One of the most epic scenes in the movie is when Tony Stark flies through the portal and lands right in front of Captain America's shield. This scene was filmed at the famous Pinewood Studios, which had been used for a ton of other movies. But no one had ever filmed a scene like this one before. So the crew had to get creative. Director Joss Whedon wanted to make the shield look heavy and hard to move, so he had the crew rig up a giant magnet to pull Tony closer to the shield. But as soon as Robert Downey Jr. stepped onto the set, he realized that the shield was way too close to his face. So he asked if they could move it further away. This meant that Robert had to improvise the scene and come up with a new way for Tony to land. Luckily, he came up with the perfect solution. Instead of just falling, he pretended to grab onto the shield and use it to flip himself around. This made the landing look way more exciting than it would have been otherwise. And it's all thanks to Robert's quick thinking. At number 1, Mark Ruffalo wasn't supposed to be Hulk. Before Mark Ruffalo was cast as Bruce Banner in The Avengers, Edward Norton played the role in 2008's The Incredible Hulk. But when it came time for the sequel, Norton left the project due to creative differences. So Marvel had to find a new actor to play the Hulk in The Avengers. At first, they were thinking of using computer-generated imagery to make the Hulk without needing an actor, but this idea was scrapped because it would have been too expensive. So Marvel turned to Mark Ruffalo, who had recently starred in the indie film The Kids Are All Right. He impressed Marvel and was cast as Bruce Banner. But some people still aren't sure why they chose Mark. He's definitely a good actor, but he wasn't as well known as some of the others on the list. But I think it's safe to say that Mark has more than proven himself over the years, and fans are excited to see him return as Bruce in She-Hulk. Well, there you have it, folks. Thanks for watching. And if you love this video, check out our channel for more awesome content. See ya.